everyone, it's Caitlin and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, I post easy, accessible, and delicious vegan recipes, and if that sounds appetizing to you, go ahead and hit that little subscribe button right down there. Today we are talking summer desserts, but not only summer desserts, no bake summer desserts. Because I know that there are some recipes where it's worth it to turn on your oven, enjoy a tasty sweet or savory treat, maybe grill outside. I have a whole grilling recipe video if you want to check that out too. But sometimes you just don't want to turn anything on, and that's totally acceptable. And the other great thing about no-bake desserts is that they're usually very fuss-free and have minimal prep or making times too. So less work all around, and you get to enjoy the yummy flavors of summer. So let's just go ahead and get straight into it. We got 4 different recipes for you today, and I guarantee there's one that you're going to love. First up, we're going to make a super simple cantaloupe slushie. So for this recipe, we're only going to need a few simple ingredients. We're going to start with a ripe cantaloupe. First, we're going to scoop the seeds out, and I wanted to give you all a little pro tip. If you're looking for a cantaloupe that's ripe, just smell the exterior of the skin. It just smell very sweet and fragrant, and that's when you know you got a good one. But after you scoop out the center of your cantaloupe, you're going to cut it into thick slices, then cut those pieces into bite-sized pieces, and remove the skin and put them on a baking tray, and we'll pop this in the freezer until they're frozen solid. So then, as you can see here, they slide more easily off of the baking tray and they're more separated than if you just threw everything into a bag. So then we're going to add the frozen cantaloupe to a blender, and then we're going to add a touch of maple syrup to sweeten it. And then here I'm adding some lime flavored sparkling water. I love the slight fizz that the sparkling water gives, but that being said, if you wanted to, you could also just add in a soda like a Sprite, which is like lemon, lime, and sweetness, and just have this be 2 ingredients, or you could also add in water and lime juice. So you're going to blend that up until you get a super thick snow cone slushy experience texture consistency like you would see here, and then you're pretty much good to go. I like to blend it so it's a little bit on the thicker side, because once you put it in a glass and you're ready to serve it and enjoy it, it does melt a little bit and it comes up easily in a straw. It's super refreshing and you guys are gonna love it. Next up, we're going to be making some chocolate covered banana pops. Insert Arrested Development reference here. So for this recipe, you want a banana that's somewhere actually in between these two. You want it to have a few spots on it, but you don't want it to be brown and mushy, because when the bananas are more firm, they have more starch content and they end up being creamier once you freeze them. So here we're going to peel all of our bananas, and then you're going to take a toothpick, or you could even use a wooden skewer, insert it into the center of the banana, and then place it back on the baking tray, and do it for all of these. I wouldn't recommend skipping this step because it gets really messy once we dunk them in chocolate. So now that all of that's done, we're going to go ahead and freeze our bananas, and then once they've been frozen solid for a few hours, we're going to go ahead and melt some chocolate in a double boiler. So here I'm adding some chocolate chips with some refined coconut oil, and we're going to cook that until it's nice and melted and you get a nice glossy surface. I have full detailed instructions for this double boiler method on my blog, but if you want to do it in the microwave, that totally works too. Just make sure you click the link below for the recipe, and all the details are up on the blog. So now once your chocolate has completely melted and it's nice and silky smooth, we're going to pour it over the bananas. I like to use a soup ladle here. This is a little bit better than dunking the bananas in, because the bananas are so frozen. When you dunk them in, it's going to cool all of the chocolate, which you don't want, because then it will start to solidify. So in order to keep the chocolate nice and liquid until all of your bananas are great, you're going to do that. And here I wanted to show you an example of bad chocolate. So my chocolate chips had no wax in them, but when they do have wax, see how it gets super thick and it was lumpy, and all I could do was use a spatula to put it on the banana, and it didn't look as cute, but it still tasted good. If you want to go this route and use more affordable chocolate chips, you can, but either make sure you're purchasing wax-free chips, which are a little more expensive, or use a chocolate bar, because those don't have wax in them. So a lot of chocolate chips, they don't have to say they're putting wax in them in the ingredient list. So long story short, use nice chocolate. And then now we have some optional fun toppings, which I think add a little extra crunch and pizzazz to your banana if you want. Obviously here we're going to go with a classic. We got chopped peanuts, we got some shredded coconut. I like to add cacao nibs for a crunchy bite. You can also add some granola to keep it fun, or go with another personal favorite, some crunchy flaky salt. So all in all, that's it. The bananas are frozen enough that the chocolate actually solidifies right after you dunk them, so you can enjoy right away. Next up, we're going to be making a watermelon slushie. This is more of a classic recipe. The cantaloupe was a more creative twist, but I am going to put my own spin on this by adding fresh mint, but basil is also delicious as well. So I wanted to show you this hack for cutting a watermelon. You're going to score the insides both ways to create a grid, and then when you cut the watermelon in half and slice it, the inner part of the watermelon, as you can see here, is just gonna pop right out. So the same process for this here, you're just going to freeze those cubes, and then we're going to add some optional mint, but highly recommended to a blender, along with the frozen watermelon. And then here we're adding in lime juice, maple syrup, and just a good old filtered water. But that being said, you could totally add lime sparkling water too. I think all the notes are in the recipe for this on the blog too, so check out that link below. And then again, we're going to blend this up until it gets a nice slushy consistency. Watermelon already has more liquid in it than cantaloupe, so you need a little bit less water in order to blend it to get this smooth, creamy, like snow cone type consistency. So then again, you're just going to plop it in your glass, dig in and enjoy, or slurp and enjoy, I should say. This is so refreshing in the summer, and if you're over 21, I also highly recommend adding in some tequila for like a frozen margarita kind of situation. It totally hits a spot, especially when it's served with a nice fancy lime wedge. Then last but certainly not least, we're going to be making a no-bake coconut mango tart. This has a few more steps, but I promise the end result is worth it. So first, we're going to start out by taking some pitted medjool dates and soaking them in water for a few minutes to soften them up. You can drain the water and save it for smoothies, but then you're going to transfer the dates to a food processor with some shredded coconut, rolled oats, and a pinch of salt. And then blend this up. You may need to scrape the sides depending on your food processor, but eventually you should get a nice thick ball of dough forming. And once that goes around in the food processor, the final texture should be pretty much good to go. So I am making my tart in a tart pan, but you can also use a pie crust for this as well. Either way, you're going to place the dough on, and then it's pretty malleable, so just use your fingers to sort of spread it around until it covers the base, and you want it to cover a small bit of the edges of the pan as well, because you want the filling to be totally encapsulated. So now moving on to the filling, you can also use a blender. I actually recommend that for a smoother finish, but here we're adding some frozen mango chunks as well as some coconut cream from a can of full fat coconut milk, plus some maple syrup, lemon or lime juice, vanilla extract, and a small pinch of salt. I promise it makes it better. And then also optionally, you can add some cardamom, which is one of my favorite spices. It is a very fragrant Indian spice and it pairs so perfectly with mango. So once you get a smooth, thick, creamy consistency like you see here, we are good to go. So you can go ahead and pour that into your tart pan. And then the greatest thing about no-bake desserts is you literally just stick this in the freezer, and then once it's frozen, you're good to go. So you can see some bubbles here. I got them a little bit out with my spatula, but another thing you can do is pick the pie pan up and drop it a few times. The vibration causes the bubbles to rise to the surface and pop. But here's what the tart looks like once it has been frozen. I topped it with some mango and some extra lime wedges to keep it nice and fancy, but it is a great, yummy summer dessert, especially when you slice it and take a bite of that creamy pie. All right, friends, and that's it for this video. Leave a comment down below and tell me which one of these recipes is your favorite. It's really hard for me to pick, but if I'm going for like ultimate refreshing but also light summer dessert, I gotta say I'm gonna go with that watermelon slushie. It just hits right on a hot summer day, especially when you add that mint in. And if you're over 21, add some tequila and thank me later. But as always, you can find all the full recipes linked below in the description of this video. You can also find them on my Instagram account if you want to follow me over there for even more food content. I post every day on there versus just around once a week over here. So, you know, if you're not sick of me yet, go follow. All right. Hope you all are taking well, enjoying the last bits of summer, and I look forward to virtually seeing you soon in the next video. Bye.